Hey guys, Crota here. So today I ran a 1v1 tournament. This is the results of that tournament. I ran it specifically so that I could get this data. I needed match data for players playing each other and going through a round robin style tournament, just so that I could see a realistic, just so I could have a realistic data set of what a competitive 1v1 situation would look like. You'll notice that a couple of these matches didn't get played, specifically 8, 10, and 14. That's because Kazi had decided not to play all of them for whatever reason. So we just didn't play those matches, those last three that he was in, and we just left them blank. So it threw off my math a little bit, but I mean, it's fine, I guess. So I took all of this data and I put it into a spreadsheet, and this is going to look really, really confusing to basically anyone who doesn't run or doesn't use spreadsheets all that much. So here's sort of how to decipher it. Each horizontal row is one match. So the first match of the day was Captain Joseph versus Chronospectrum. We each had a skill rating of 1,000. So skill rating is sort of this imaginary number that I came up with. Every player gets 1,000 SR to start, and if you win a match, your SR goes up. If you lose a match, your SR goes down. It's based on an ELO ranking system. I just renamed it to SR just because it sounded cool. The next two columns are the win percentages. So it takes your SR, it compares them to your opponent, and it figures out who's most likely to win the game. So if you have equal SR, you have equal chance of winning. And you'll notice that it takes a pretty huge difference in SR to get more than like a 60-40 chance. So this one, I outranked Yukameki by, that's like almost 100 points. It's like 80 points. And that was still only 60% to 40%. So there's clearly work that needs to be done, but I mean, those are just variables that can be changed. That's actually this variable up here, but I can get to that later. So the next two columns are the actual score that got recorded. So that first match, Captain Joseph got 3 kills, I got 10. That resulted in a win for me, which means my new SR goes up to 1016, and Joseph's new SR goes down to 984. So that's a difference of 16 apiece. There is some rounding errors that end up happening later, which is why you get odd numbers instead of even numbers. That's something that I'll have to probably figure out. I think it has something to do with the win percentage. I think what it's doing is it's using the full value. So if I actually expand these to show more decimal places, you can see that the first couple matches are all exactly 50-50 odds, but as you start to get lower and lower down, as more matches are played, it becomes 60.1% versus 39.1%. This one was exactly 50-50 because they had exactly the same SR, 1015. This one's 0.48 as opposed to 0.52. So it's just, I think it's using all of the data, but I'm just sort of reading it as, whoops, I wanted to do both columns actually, instead of just looking at it as 0.5. So that's probably some math that would need to happen in code. I'm not sure how to do it in Excel, but that's not any particular problem. These last two columns are actually the same as these last two columns, except it's modulated for close games. So if you look over here, this last match was a really close match. It was me and Sturban. Sturban got 9 kills, I got 10. So the game was expecting me to win with a 60% probability of that happening. So let me actually expand that. Yeah, it had a 56.4% chance of me winning. I did end up winning, but it also expected Sturban to win at a 43.6% chance. So what I did was, to get these modulated scores, I took these percentages times 10. So it would this 0.5 would actually become 5. So I was expected to earn, actually it would have rounded to 6. Whatever. So it expected me to earn 6 kills. I earned 10, which means my SR went up. I got more than I was expected to. Sturban was expected to get 4 kills, give or take. He ended up getting 9, so his SR went up. So his old SR was 1115, and then it went up to 1162, even though he lost. Whereas if you look at this SR system, his old rank was 999, but he lost, so his SR went down to 985. So I'm not sure which system is better, But I kind of like if you get a close game where you do better than you were expected to do, your SR can still go up. That does create a lot of problems. One of the things that happens with an ELO ranking system for games like chess is that it's a closed loop. There are a fixed number of points because there are a fixed number of competitors. So like, if we stuck with this and I had no rounding errors, there would be 6,000 points at the end distributed amongst all 6 players, but I might have 1057 and someone else might have 900. But the total of all 6 of us would have ended up being 6,000 because it's a closed system. This doesn't really work for video games because anyone can join the competitive scene at any time and people can leave the competitive scene at any time. So they would end up taking those points with them. So like, I think a part of the reason that there's 3 people below 1,000 on this is because Kaz took his points and left, basically. So he played this match. This was his last one. He was at 1032, so he was already winning all of his matches. But since he didn't play the next one, all of those extra points are just sort of gone. They're basically removed from the pool, so everyone sort of ends up with less than 1,000 points. So that's a problem. This fixes that problem to some degree, but it creates a new one. It adds too many points. You can see every single one of us is above 1,000, even though somebody left. So even though Yuka lost his first match, he went down to 970, but he sort of like worked his way back up because he did better than he was expected to on other matches. So this one, what's another one that Yuka did? This one, yeah, this one's a good one. So these Yuka and Captain Joseph both had the same SR coming in, 984. They had a 50-50 odds of winning. Yuka scored 6 points, Joseph scored 10, so both of their SR went up because they both did better than they were expected to. And again, this is not a closed system. I'm introducing more points every time someone does better than they're expected to. So it's not a closed loop system, so it's also got issues. But I think this one probably works better. Another thing is the K value. So without going too far into how the math on an ELO ranking system works, there's this item called the K value. Basically, it changes how many points you get or lose for winning or losing. By having a more extreme K value, so if I set this to 200, it's going to give some really, really crazy results. So Joseph lost his first game 3-10, so his SR went down by 400, mine went up by like 1,000. So yeah, it's kind of nuts. So you don't want to use a K value that high, but if you use something like 0.5, then you can see the scores don't really change that much. They change, like he lost, he was supposed to earn 5 points, he ended up earning 3 points, so he only lost 1 point of SR. So there's going to have to be some playing with the values to get it to work right. I think I'm looking at 12 is what I wanted, because like I won 4 matches, I think. Might have been 3. Let me actually look. I played 4 matches. Yep. I played 4 matches. I won all 4. I ended up with 1,200. Sturban is basically second place. He won 2, lost 3. But he did really, really well in this last one. And I think he did well in the other ones too. Yeah, he got 8 against Joseph. So that was another really good match. So his SR is pretty close to mine. So I kind of like this modulated SR a little bit better just because it does yield a little bit better of a result. So that's sort of what this whole tournament was about, was getting data so that I can sort of figure out or have an accurate data set to work with, so that I can play with this a little bit, because I would like to introduce this into Warmorize as sort of a competitive mode. This is sort of a preview of that. I'm going to have a video later that sort of goes through and simulates what it would look like in game, what the UI would have to look like, what the programming would have to look like, what it would look like for the player. So if you have a button that says queue me for competitive, would you have to sit on that menu and wait for it? Could you play another game and have it yank you out of that? So it's just it's some stuff that I still need to work through, but this is sort of what the tournament was about, and I thought I'd share the data, because it's not like it should be private data. I mean, it's just the match record. So yeah, it also one of the unexpected side benefits of Kazuya leaving is that I can sort of think about how I want to handle forfeits. So if I treat a match match 8, match 10, and match 14 as forfeits, then Chronospectrum, Impala, and Joseph, do they get extra points because they won the forfeit? Do we just not count them at all? Is that fair? So it gives me an opportunity to play with that a little bit. So I could, for example, dock his SR by a certain amount for not showing up to matches. You know, I could give Joseph a free win for match 14. He was expected to lose, but if he got credited a victory, that would be 10 points. And so, actually, I wonder. Okay, so hang on. Let's actually do this live. So, the last match that Kaz played was 11-20. He had an SR of 11-20. So if I put this in here, Kaz, and then he was going to face me. Okay, so let's say I won, just for fun. My SR was 11-14. Am I pulling from the same source? Yes, I'm pulling from the modulated SR. Okay, so the probability of me winning was actually lower. It was 0.49, or sorry, it was 49.1% that I would win. So if I ended up getting a 10-0 victory, so what would happen? So this would be, let's just copy both of these, bring them down. You are saying M6. I don't want M6. I want M7, because that was my SR. And then, oh no, I want his SR first. I want his SR. So let's actually just change this. And then this should be Chronospectrum. Okay, so his SR would have been 11-20. The slot for that would be this one. My SR would have been 11-14, should have been this slot. So my SR would have gone up to 1176 instead of, what was it at, 1114? Yeah. So it would have gone up by like 60 points for a 10-0 victory. His would have went down to 1059. So if he had forfeited that match, so like if we actually had this implemented in the game, he queued for competitive and then decided he didn't want to play, his SR would go down, mine would go up because I want a forfeit victory. So that's kind of what I'm talking about with playing with the data like this. I'm actually going to delete both of these because it's not good data. And actually these guys can go too. Actually these guys can go too. So yeah, that's what this data is for. I'll make another video that's going to be a little bit more flashy instead of just looking at a spreadsheet and playing with it later. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and I wanted to go ahead and thank everyone who competed in the tournament, and thanks everyone who applied, because actually the responses, let me actually, I think it was test form. Yeah, this was it. The responses I got were really, really good, and this system, the system of application is something that's probably going to be used for future WWC and WLCs if those happen again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give these forms to tournament organizers, and I'm going to let them modify it as they need to for their tournament. And so it should make applications really easy because you can sort through the responses and just and you can even graph them to a spreadsheet if you really wanted to. It just makes it really easy to sort through. So yeah, that's basically all I wanted. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the tournament, and I hope you guys show up for the next tournament sometime next year. Happy holidays, everyone, and I'll see you in 2020.